Everyone, Joe Waxman here, the mediocre astrologer. Man, he's okay. Hope you guys are okay. What's up, everyone? In this video, I want to continue my house series and talk about the fourth house. All right, so hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share, and let's get right into it. All right. Now there's the clock, and you could see what time it is if you know how to read the astro clock by the sun position. It's just, a few hours after sunrise, I guess. So it's yeah, you can also read here, 8:03 a.m. Not that it matters that much, but anyway. All right. So what's the fourth house? The IC is what we call it. Um, yeah, so the the IC is directly below the Earth, and the MC is directly above, straight up. Um, but archetypally, the IC, the fourth house, represents the early life and the home, the house, the actual physical brick and mortar home that we live in, right? So it often represents the parents, the mother and the father, the childhood, the upbringing, the early life, the home, the present home, the past home and the present home. It can also represent other physical stuff, right? Like brick and mortar. Like if you own a storefront, you have a bunch of planets here, and you own a storefront, that would be appropriate. Or if you work in a restaurant, own a restaurant, things like that. Anything with brick and mortar, right? You own a shop, some kind of shop, retail, anything where it's like, physicality, right? Or a home, or you deal with real estate, that would be fourth house. Or you deal with land, buying and selling of land in itself, that would be a fourth house thing. Fourth house could also be behind closed doors, right? So things that you do physically in the flesh that are hidden. There's a hidden quality, but it's a little different from the other water houses, eighth and 12th, in that the fourth house is more physical than the eighth or 12th, meaning that we can hide things kind of psychologically up here in the eighth and 12th. These are both psychological houses. 12th house being our personal psychology, eighth house being our shared psychology of others, right? And fourth house being our roots, where we came from and what we do behind closed doors. So almost like skeletons in the closet, if you will, right? Like literally, like literal physical things that are hidden in our home or things that we do behind closed doors, right? It also, so like in terms of like artistic um expressions, it would be a very physical expression. So like sculpture, you see like sculptors, architects, um, anyone who is making some sort of creative physical stuff with their hands, right? Um, so like, working with clay or wood or anything like that. Um, yeah. What's his name? Michelangelo had a stationary Venus in the fourth house. Stationary Venus being the most important thing. I think it's in Aries, but it was stationary, and that's the critical point. Venus, fourth house, and he was the premier sculptor, one of the probably the greatest sculptor of all time. He was also an architect, a great architect. He was also a painter, but that was secondary for him. Sculpture was primary. And so that's a fourth house thing, architecture, sculpture, cooking, you'll see a lot because restaurants in the fourth house, home ownership, real estate, also politics. You'll see political figures with fourth house because homeland, right? Governing the land, concern with the land, ruling over the land. So like kingship, courtship, right? Where somebody has like a throne and they rule the land. That's a very fourth house thing. So you'll see with royalty as well, right? Somebody who owns a lot of land. You can see this with criminals too, who they have their turf, right? They have the land that this is my land, homie. Better get off it or I'll shoot you. Bust a cap in your ass. um They probably don't talk like that, but some of them might. Anyway, they have their turf, they have their territory, right? And so it's territorial, fourth house, right? It could extend to third house even because the hood community, that sort of thing. Not well, community's 11th house, but the hood, the neighborhood, third house. But fourth house is like, land ownership or governance, you could say, of a certain amount of land. Um, yeah. And like I said, it also relates to parents and things that happen to parents, how we are treated by our parents when we're kids, how we are treated in general when we're kids. If there's like a harmful planet here, like Pluto can show abuse when we're children, right? Especially if it's poorly aspected. Um, um, yeah, it also, I mean, it shows our psychological heritage as well. It shows all our heritage, right? Like, for instance, my chart has Aquarius in the fourth, right? And Aquarius very much describes my background, my upbringing. It's extremely unusual. Like my parents were, like I was conceived in Japan, and then they moved to Philly, and then when I grew up in a study house, so like a community, it was very Aquarian. It was like out of the box, right? We were thinking very abstract thoughts, yin and yang, macrobiotics, five transformation, all this stuff that hardly anyone knows, right? Very Aquarian, right? Um, so it'll describe the environment that you grew up in. Um, what else? What else? Yeah, just the physical home that you live in, right? If you have a big home there, or a small home, or lots of homes, or stuff like that, it describes your home environment. So what happens like with different planets here? The sun, if you have the sun in the fourth, it's going to be pretty broad, as the sun always is. It just shows like the area where you can really shine, where you really have your biggest, brightest influence and light. So it's pretty broad. The sun can bring fame or notoriety, recognition. It can bring um, daily sort of work, if you will. It's not necessarily our career, but it can be an indication of our career. At least it's going to play into it, right? Um, Now, if you have, let's see, Mercury in the fourth, um, obviously it depends on what signs it's ruling, or what houses it rules. But Mercury in the fourth can be like friends from childhood. It can be communicating or writing from home, working from home, right? Operating, it could be like dealing with like real estate, something, technical. Um, yeah, it just shows a communication from home. So some like maybe you work from home, like I said. Yeah. Venus in the fourth, it can bring in that very creative physical quality. So maybe you like to be creative in a physical way, right? Depending on the sign and aspects, but there could be that. A love of home, a beautification of the home, right? You want to beautify the home. You want to have a beautiful home. You love to be at home and um, lounge about, have fun at home. Um, Moon in the fourth is great. It's a very natural place because that's happy at home, right? It shows, especially if it's well aspected, um, good mother, happy at home. Um, you just love to be at home, and you're nourished deeply. So there's a difference between just Venus and Moon, just that Venus is more sensorial enjoyment, Moon is more heartfelt satisfaction, right? If you have Mars in the fourth, not necessarily the greatest position. um, there could be too much temper or anger in the home environment, especially in childhood. But it could be great for building physical stuff. Like you might be actually like a builder, or somebody who works in physical stuff physically, like physical, like building houses, literally, construction worker. Or could be other physical stuff too, like maybe you build cars, right? Yeah, land, working with the land, the earth as well, right? Real estate, things like that. Um, Jupiter in the fourth likes a very big home, right? Wants to expand home environment. Like some this could be like a home developer, real estate developer, somebody who teaches from home, somebody who has a teacher at home or from childhood. Maybe your parents were a teacher, right? Things like that. Maybe your parent was like one of your like your guru, not just a teacher, but like a teacher to you, right? Because a parent doesn't necessarily have to be a teacher to you. They are your parent. They might teach you things, but they're not necessarily a teacher. But they could be if Jupiter's in the fourth, right? But Jupiter in the fourth could it's going to expand the home, bring success to real estate things or those kind of things, right? Um, Saturn in the fourth will bring very strict upbringing. Usually the parents are very tough. The childhood was very rigid, strict, and full of authority, right? You grew up in a household that's more like maybe almost military or just very strict, right? Parents were hard drivers, put you to work, made you disciplined. Um, and you like to be that way at home with Saturn in the fourth. Um, Uranus in the fourth can indicate trauma, right? From childhood trauma. Um, it can indicate accidents at home or something very shocking, unusual. It can indicate that, Uranian maybe grew up in a very unusual way, sort of like I was describing with the Aquarius in the fourth. Um, your parents might have been very unusual, unorthodox, out of the box, maybe brilliant, perhaps, perhaps like genius or inventors or just um or perhaps, even something like an electrician would still qualify, right? Uranus can be very on a mundane level electric, right? Or rhythmic or comedic, right? It could be very funny. Maybe you grew up in a very funny environment, where you like to be very funny at home, or maybe you own a comedy nightclub, right? Brick and mortar, Uranus, something like that, or an electric supply store, something like that. Um, Neptune, Neptune in the fourth can show separation and loss from family. It can show um, loss or damage to the home. Uranus can too. But Neptune can show water damage even in the fourth. It can show loss of the home, loss of the family, loss of early. So somehow like your past or your childhood is very nebulous and mysterious and something kind of, I don't know, esoteric or dreamlike or fantasy oriented. Could be very imaginative and creative at home or early childhood, right? There could be some element of you grow up in an artistic or spiritual or esoteric household family. Um, you could grow up with movies, film or cinema or arts, creativity. And maybe you like that in your home, as an adult, something very artistic or creative or spiritual in your home. Um, or you own a brick and mortar, something that deals like a spiritual shop or arts shop, something like that. Pluto in the fourth, it can show childhood abuse, power over others, somebody having power over you. Um, Definitely can be a very painful situation, right? And so if you have like Pluto and Uranus, definitely something happened when the person was growing up, something probably not good, right? But Pluto alone could be sexual abuse, could be verbal abuse, if it's in like a sign like Gemini, um, or it could just be, just um, physical abuse, right? Violence. or manipulation, right? Just like somebody who's just very manipulative, a narcissist, right? Maybe not necessarily sexual, but like you just grew up with a narcissist parent who was just lacked empathy and was very abusive in that sense, right? Um, Pluto in the fourth could be very obsessive about land and ownership, right? You know, if it's a drug lord or I mean, this is very how many people are going to be drug lords, but like, you know, they're going to be like extreme about their territory. But if you own something like if you own land or something, you're going to be really obsessive about it. You own a house, you own a shop, you own a restaurant, you own this, that, physical stuff, right? You're going to be very obsessive about that. Psychology, right? Psychology in the fourth, psychology at home. Maybe you're a psychologist and you have an office and you fulfill it that way. So you have the Pluto in the fourth house represented by that. You're a psychologist, or it could be astrology related too. Like maybe you grew up with astrology, your parents were astrologers, maybe your parents were psychologists, psychiatrists, right? So it's not always negative, right? Strategy, land strategy. Like you might see this with somebody who is like military in the military because they're thinking about the land and they're thinking about strategy, how to win the war or where to deploy the troops, things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Also politics, like I said, politics. So like Pluto, Sun, Jupiter, all these things would relate to politics as well, because right, governance of the land. Kingship, royalty, you'll see in fourth house. Yeah. So like politicians, royalty, and like criminals, you'll see fourth house. And like people who build empires, sometimes you'll see fourth house because they just own a lot of physical stuff. Right. Uh Yeah. So that's pretty much it for the fourth house. It's very has that very grounded physical stuff. Land ownership, physical ownership of things, ruling the land, governing the land, all that. So yeah, I think that about covers it. All right. So all right. Um, hope you enjoyed this or found this useful. And I will see you guys again soon. Mediocre astrologer signing off. Man, he's okay. And I hope you guys are okay. And laugh it off. Take a victory laugh. Win before you win. I'll see you guys again soon. Hit that like button for me. Thanks. All right. Bye bye.